Lightning like Steve McQueen, I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit, cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly, better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder, and I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. At the end of the day, you guys, anybody who comes on my platforms, whether it's my weekday live show or whether it is my twice a week long form podcast that I drop, we are all transportation professionals. All right. This is people who are active in the day-to-day and everything. So with that being said, you guys, at the end of it all, we're just looking to provide information and insight that you can apply, utilize, and see a meaningful difference in your business and in your life. It's one of the many reasons why I proudly fly this American flag behind me, is because this is the greatest nation on earth, but B, I'm living my American dream, and I want to help each and every one of you guys live your American dream as well. I got a very special guest who I'm going to pull up here soon. It's a very hot button issue that's all over social media and everything else that's going on in the world. And we're going to talk about it, and we're going to tear apart this whole fun thing called a non-compete and a non-solicit. But before I do that, I got to give a shout out to my friends over at VHub. You guys, vhubapp.com. Whether you're a broker, carrier, or shipper, we all need access to trailers at some point in time. And especially right now with rising fuel costs and maintenance costs and everything, you should never have to shut your operation down because your trailer's in the shop. And the best part about it, you guys get paid to move these trailers. So what they're working on right now is they got Milton, Ontario going to Montreal, Quebec for $250 Canadian. They also have Galt, California going out to Hutchins, Texas for $500 US. They have Winnipeg, Manitoba going down to Vaughan, Ontario for $500 Canadian. And then finally, they got Macomb, Mississippi, a flatbed going up to Brighton, Colorado for $1,600 US. So hit them up, you guys, vhubapp.com. My friends Stacy Steen and Xavier Campos, they'll be in the audience. Just do me a favor. Let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. Zach Williams, happy Friday. What's up, brother? He's with SPI Logistics, you guys. If you guys want to become an independent freight agent and take control of your financial future, hit up my man, Zach. Drew Driscoll, what's up? Axel Logistics in the house. It's Friday. Let's make sure people are covered, and let's have a great weekend. Amen to that. April Maroney, what's up? Let's fucking go Friday. Christian Sneed, what's up? Oh, yeah, thanks for joining. All right, I got to bring him up. Are you guys ready? He's adjusting his camera. He looks steady now. I'm going to pull him up out of the green room. Mr. Matthew Leffler, what's up, buddy?
It's so good to see you, Chris. How are you?
Dude, it's just good to have you back, man. I know you're out here raising some twins now on top of your other 2 children that you have. And yeah, man, it is, I love it. Dude, I'm just happy to see you because, like, ever since you've had your kids, I've been following you on social media, but I don't want to reach out because I don't know if you're asleep in these moments.
I'll tell you this, infants, newborns have to eat every 3 hours. And when you have 2 of them, they generally aren't on the same schedule. So you're going to be sleeping in increments of less than 3 hours. It is brutal.
So how is it? Because, like, how old is your second born son? How old is he?
So my middle guy is 7 years old. My big guy's 10. And then we have the nearly 2-month-old newborns.
So how is that, like, but that 7-year gap there, man? What's been the biggest difference? I got to ask.
Well, the 7-year-old can get his own snacks, can bathe himself, can brush his own teeth, and is pretty self-sufficient. He can't make his own dinners. I get that. But generally speaking, they're pretty much set him and forget him. Whereas the twins, not nearly so easy.
So, all right. This article, we're not going to do the norm. You guys know the breakdown. It's a day 195 of the Freight Coach Tally. Fuel prices are through the fucking roof. All of that stuff, $4.58 a gallon or whatever nationwide. But you guys are all here for the topic of non-competes, non-solicits, all of that fun shit. So what is this proposal that the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has put out there? Can you explain that, please?
Absolutely. So the FTC has come out with a proposed rule. A proposed rule means this is what they're thinking of doing. And in a couple of days, there'll be a point where you can, as individuals, comment on the proposed rule. But what the proposed rule outlines is a blanket ban on all non-competition agreements except for the sale of a business. So the former owners of a business can still be bound. This blanket of the ban of non-competition agreements also rescinds the existing non-competes out there. So if you're a freight broker and you signed a non-competition agreement, if this rule goes into effect, that is void. It is done. There are no more non-competes. And that is what the FTC is pushing forward. What we know from the commissioners right now is that it's likely to break down on party lines, 3-2. The votes are there. If this rule goes, it will pass. It's incredible to see the FTC making these moves today.
When you say party lines 3-2, what does that mean? Is that like in the Supreme? That's not the Supreme Court. That like, how does the FTC get this ruling to go through?
Yeah, so the commissioners, what they basically do is they will propose a rule. The rule gets finalized, and then they vote on the final rule. And these commissioners are political appointees. And as it breaks down, 3 of them are liberal, and 2 of them are more conservative. And in the world of non-competition agreements, generally speaking, the more conservative party is in favor of them. Not all of them are like this, but many of the conservative that are out there are in favor of non-competition agreements, mostly because they believe in private contracts. They think that the government should not get involved in private contracts, whereas the more liberal commissioners are going to look at it and say, look, we know that 1 in 5 Americans, 30 million people, are bound by non-competition agreements. And we also believe, as the commissioner has said, that if these things go away, people might be making up to $300 billion more a year because of the nature of these non-competition agreements.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Okay.
Oh, it's going to be fascinating, dude. It's going to be absolutely amazing.
Aaron Smetak, Happy New Year. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Sunny Sharma, good morning. Let's fucking go on this great Friday. Dylan Turner says, good fucking morning. Let's get some. Whitney Young, one of my favorite owner ops up there in Utah. Good morning. He says he's a little late. Dude, so I want to talk about this now because it's no, this shouldn't be of any surprise to anybody who listens to my stuff that I am a massive proponent of freedom and not a fan of the government telling us what to do at all. I understand that the importance of the structure of it, but as little as possible. Do you think this is too much though, where the government is stepping in and saying that this shouldn't be a thing? Should a private business be able to decide this? And now, again, you guys, I fucking hate non-compete, so I'll make that clear right now. But anyways, that's a different question, different point. I just want to bring this up here.
Yeah, I mean, it is a question of governmental overreach. Do we want government to look at the private contracts between employers and employees, and even independent contractors that have a non-competition component to their agreements? For me personally, I want to see them go away. Now, there are states that have banned them outright. States like California and Texas and Oklahoma and others have gone this path. Illinois, my own home state, they have done some work on non-competition agreements. But if you look at the history of these things, and this is what I think is so fascinating, these contracts did not exist until after the Civil War. And what happened when the Civil War happened, all the different amendments that took place after the Civil War, what plantation owners did was they could not enslave people anymore, but they could give them non-competition agreements and say, you can work for me, but you can't go work down the street. You cannot sell your labor. And that is how they started. And you walk the line over the last few decades and you see where they ended. I'll use the example of Jimmy John's. Everyone loves freaky fast sub sandwiches. Well, Jimmy John's
number 14, ride or die. That's my jam there.
I'm with you. And what Jimmy John's did was they had every single person working for them sign a non-competition agreement. It would say for 2 years, you could not work at any place within 3 miles of a Jimmy John's store that made over 10% of their revenue from cold cut sandwiches. That's what they fucking do. That is what they do. If a business can stop you from doing what you're good at, they will do it. And so for me, I don't think the businesses are going to make the right decision. They're not going to stop using them. The government is going to step in, hopefully, and make them go away. So that's my opinion. I don't like non-competes. I hate them. I hate them.
Yeah. Drew Driscoll in the Italian nightclub goes crazy. Oh, that's funny. So I think that a non-competition agreement at the entry level should be non-existent, but I feel at the ownership, equity, shareholder, perspective, like if you own 10% of a company, I believe in a non-compete at that level, because I feel like what would stop you from stealing everything and splitting and going off and just replicating it on under your own. So I think that it's, to me, what I hate about non-competes at the end of the day, what I despise about them is that it stops a young individual or even a mid-level individual who's, mid-level in the company who'd only been there for 5 years. It stops them from pursuing a greater opportunity that they might be presented with. Now, because if they're not if they don't have equity in the company, if they are not privy to trade secrets or anything like that, I don't think that they should be bound to a non-compete at all. And I will sit up here and say anybody who works for any of my companies will never have to sign a non-compete in a non-equity shareholder position, because I feel like there is some serious upside to having that in place. If you own a company and then you have a partner and like say there's a falling out, what stops your partner from stealing everything and then going and doing it almost immediately? So I see the point of it there.
And the commission is with you. So the commission has put an exception for the non-competition ban, saying if you are an equity holder or an owner of a business and you sell the business, they can keep you locked out with that non-competition agreement. And that makes sense. If I'm buying your company, I don't want you just to spin around and say, hey, I'm doing it again. I want to keep my investment safe. Now, there is no exception right now in the proposed rule of people that are C-level executives, so non-owners, but people with actual ability to influence the company. And I'm seeing in the chat here, I have heard from dozens and dozens of people over the last few months of how non-competition agreements have ruined their lives, have affected them in profound ways. And this is why I think it's so important that we understand over the next few weeks, you and your listeners can post public comments and tell the story of how non-competes have affected your lives. And that will be part of the record, and it'll be part of the rulemaking process.
No, I agree. Sunny Sharma says, fuck non-competes. I had to fight one for years. I just wanted to throw that out there. Sorry.
That's why I was absolutely.
Michelle LeBlanc says, spot on. I feel like as a vendor / independent contractor, it makes total sense to be able to actively choose to have a contract that offers it as a benefit to your clients / customers, but also you have more freedom to walk away at that level. And should you know what you're signing off on, doing to any low levels who don't have the power, low-level employees, who don't have any power leverage is ridiculous. And I couldn't agree more. Cody Miller says, good fucking morning, freight enthusiasts. That was a great show to have Leffler and Jolly together. Couldn't agree more. So absolutely. I want to talk about because I think that there's some companies, especially in freight, man, there's some companies who are banging a non-compete drum, how, oh, we would never make anybody sign it, but they have a fucking non-solicit that's 10 times worse than the non-compete, because it could read the language of you can't work or solicit any shipper that we as a company are working with, not just the individual who, again, I understand a non-solicit from the stance if you come in and work for an organization and build your entire multi-million-dollar book of business based off of that company's resources and then try and leave overnight, I can see a non-solicit at that point. Any sales rep out there, if you're looking to jump ship and go somewhere, have an exclusion list of every customer that you would be bringing in, that they come with you and leave with you. But I think that any broker out there who's banging this non-compete drum, but their non-solicit is the verbiage is every shipper that a certain company is working with, that is 10 times worse than a non-compete. And that's fucking, the hypocrisy behind that is what drives me absolutely up the fucking wall. And as much of a fan of government overreach that I am not, I like that is included in it. So essentially in this FTC proposed rule, anybody who has that right now, you're fucked. Like that is absolved at that point.
What we want to see with all of these, we call them post-employment restrictive covenants, which is non-competes, non-solicits, non-disparagements, non-disclosures. They got to be reasonable. They got to be reasonable. And if you touch the client, then maybe the non-solicit may bind you. But to have a blanket statement of any company that's ever worked with me, you can't talk to, is likely not going to work. Now, here's the thing about non-solicits. They only lock in what you can do reaching out. They have no power if your former customers or your former colleagues reach out to you and say, hey, what you doing these days? I'd love to work with you again. And so when you get that cease and desist letter from one of these companies that says, we don't use non-competes, but we do use non-solicits, you can tell them to go pound sand. This is why I'm not as against non-solicits as I would be with non-competes, because non-solicits, I can get you around the non-solicit. The non-compete, it's hard to break. The non-solicit, pretty easy ultimately.
So hypothetically speaking, this isn't legal advice or anything like that, you guys.
Of course
This is
not.
just two individuals just having a conversation right now about communistic approaches, which is a non-compete and a non-solicit, if you will. If you were, in a position where I wanted to get around a non-solicit, what are some steps that an unsuspecting individual who's not taking legal advice on a certain morning show could do?
This is the advice that I would give to this hypothetical person. As always, nothing here is intended for legal advice. If you think you need a lawyer, you should hire a lawyer. But if you're in a company and you're like, I'm going to leave, you can always send the email saying, I've had a great time working with you over the last few years. If you want to reach out to me, here's my personal cell phone. Here's my email address. And then that's it. When you go to your new company, make a post on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook, wherever your customers or clients may have been, and say, here's where I'm at right now. I'm so excited to be here. That is enough for you to tell people where you are. And then your former customers or colleagues can reach out to you. Circumventing the non-solicitation. That is how you get around those things, or could theoretically.
Would anybody hypothetically have, if they're using their own personal cell phone for their former, like say I'm working for freight broker A right now, and I'm using my own personal cell phone to contact customers with, and I call them on that said personal cell phone number to let them know, hey, I'm going to broker B now, and I would love for you to come with. Is that in violation since it's on personal property and calling their personal cell phone? And it's just
100%.
But even if we're just,
it's against their contract.
But what if it's just two individuals sitting here shooting the shit, man? Like, we're buddies. We've known each other for 5-7 years. Yeah. You were at my wedding. We've danced together. We've ate together. We've had a bunch of fun together. We're just talking.
So this is where it gets dicey, right? It's a fact intensive analysis of who reached out first, who solicited first. And so if you use your personal phone as at freight broker A, and you're doing your business that way, and you say, I'm going over to this B company and you should come with me, that is likely going to be a solicitation in violation of your non-solicitation agreement. Now you could say, I'm going over to this company. Talk to me again when you have time, or something like that. You can still have relationships with your former clients. You just can't ask them to come work with you. Now, if they say, I want to get set up in your network, that's a whole other conversation.
So say hypothetical conversations going on again, and I'm talking to my friend, and it's like, hey, I'm thinking about going to this other broker B here. This is my thought. They have a solid offer on the table. And what if your customers, hypothetical response would be, well, when you go over there, I will reach out to you and I want to get set up with you there. Is that in violation? Hypothetically speaking.
No, hypothetically, absolutely not. I mean, again, the non-solicitation binds you from acting out. It does not stop outsiders from coming to you. And that's the real important piece of the non-solicitation.
Todd Waldron has a question here. Could company A claim employees stole data by taking the shipper's phone number with them and didn't delete it?
That's an interesting question. Now, here's the thing about confidential proprietary information. If Google knows it, it's probably not confidential proprietary information. Contact information, emails, you can find it from all sorts of big data mining organizations. Check with your lawyer. Every state differs. But generally speaking, if it's publicly available information, it is not it's not confidential. It's public. So things like that are probably not going to be a problem with confidential proprietary information if it's publicly available information.
So say you use lead generation software, and that information that you have in your cell phone just happens to be on the lead generation software's website. That's technically public information, right? Because they're using a bot to scrape databases and everything else. And again, this is all hypothetical. Like, this isn't legal.
The thing to keep in mind is that your net worth is your network. And that's why having these connections on all these different social media platforms is so important. Now, I still say if you are presented with a non-solicitation agreement, you are only going to be allowing your new company to rent your contacts. And you should always say, here are the people that are mine. These come with me regardless. You can negotiate. Freight brokers, you negotiate every fucking day. Why would you not want to negotiate these contracts that are presented to you and say, no, these are the ones that are mine and that I bring them with me? I would always encourage people to negotiate hard for the things that actually are yours.
So say you're a new sales rep and you're rebuilding a book of business. What validity could you have to the exclusion list? Like, could I just go in there and, and just be like, I don't technically have a relationship with these 25 accounts, but I know that they ship freight.
I mean, you could try that. I think your new employer would probably be able to pressure test that and say, okay, well, who do you know? How much business do you do with them? Give me an understanding. And in that context, I don't think you're going to get that exclusion list you'd like. But if you've been doing this a long time and you've had the same clients over several different organizations you've been a part of, like I said, effective salespeople rent their contacts to their employer. The employer doesn't own that shit. They just get to rent it as long as you're there and you're happy.
Yeah. Again, I just think to me, it's like the hypocrisy of it all. Like, I just think if you're going to have them, like at the end of the day, but I personally feel you need to explain to your potential employee what this actually means, what this would actually do. Because again, if you're an organization and you're going to have a non-compete, more power to you. I'm not here to tell anybody how to operate. I just know in my past, it wasn't necessarily explained to me what I was signing. And I know the counter argument is going to be like, oh, you should fucking read the documents.
No,
well, then let me take it to an attorney and have my attorney read it to me then. But that doesn't necessarily always happen. It's buried on page 88 of the employment agreement. I'll just fucking sign there. You've already signed 87 other ones. They promised you beers at lunch. So you're like, let's fucking roll.
This is a great point you bring up, is between 30 and 40% of all non-competition and non-solicitation agreements are given to you after you've accepted the job. They know you're already in. They know you're not going anywhere. And they know you're probably not going to find outside legal resources. If you're a company and you're thinking, I want to put all these contracts in front of my employees, you should pay for them to get legal services done, to have them get these reviewed by lawyers. Because in Illinois, for example, we require the contract to say you have been advised to seek outside counsel. You have 14 days to review the contract. And it only works if you're above $75,000 a year. So there are protections in place for some places, but this is a thing people need to be aware of. If you're presented with these documents, ask for more time. If you don't ask for more time, you're not going to get it. Once you ask for time, find a lawyer, ask them to look it over. Look for these post-employment restrictive covenants, non-competes, non-solicits, non-disclosures, non-disparagements, and all the other non-things that happen.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of non-fun dad joke. Anyways, I just think that again, it's like, as this stuff continues to build up steam in the industry, like it's going to take off, because this is a big thing that a lot of organizations within the transportation industry adhere to currently. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, how the fallout of this goes. And is this going to essentially be open poaching season for talent at that point? Because, it's kind of going to be like free agency when LeBron left fucking Cleveland back in the day, where, dude, it's just to be like the biggest free agent market ever if this gets out there, because people are going to be fucking going hard.
I want all of your listeners to make a shit ton more money. And when these non-competes go away, they will all make more money, because they will be able to take their talents to any place that they want to. And it's super important for people to make sure they make comments when this happens, because our government does not understand how pervasive non-competes are in the supply chain. And we do not need them, because it makes it harder to move freight. I think it's going to be an amazing few months. And one last thing I'll mention is the companies that are following me and reading my posts about the non-competes are very surprising. So I know the people who love non-competes are paying very close attention.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. I'm just going to say right now, if any of you guys ever are at Freight Coach Logistics, you'll never have any capped commissions at all. And I won't ever raise your goals to make it harder for you to make money. Just throwing that out there. we'll be hiring sales reps before you know it. And then, yeah, I'm going to pull up Todd's question right here.
Yeah, there's a question. Okay, this question is pretty interesting. It says, do you think an employee should be able to download a customer list from a company's CRM prior to leaving and take it with them? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That is confidential proprietary information. Customer lists belong to the business. Now, you may know those customers because you're connected with them on LinkedIn. That is different than a customer list from a CRM. Do that at your own risk. Again, consult an attorney, not legal advice. I'd be very, very careful on something like that.
Yeah, definitely. Michelle LeBlanc says her general feeling is that if one of my employees can take one of my customers, that I didn't do a good enough job of earning that customer ongoing work. Yeah, Michelle, I couldn't agree with that more. I feel like I truly believe in that. If you're running an organization and your customers don't know who you are, especially if you're a founder, especially if you're in leadership, if you're not having, if you're not visible with them, if they don't feel like they're part of your family and vice versa, then it's on you as an owner. It's on you as a leader at that point. It's not the employee. And again, I think like a lot of these things are symptoms of shitty leadership, and they're trying to put fucking contracts in place because some fucking douchebag wants to sit in his office for fucking 8 hours a day and not actually do a job and collect a massive salary with. Todd, I'm always wearing an orange shirt. You know that, bro. I'm going to get orange pajamas made here pretty soon. Michelle says, HubSpot, you can prevent exports from your staff. Maybe not a bad thing.
And just so people know, like, we can find out as lawyers, if you take something from us and you delete we'll find it. Forensic accounting and forensics on computers, really, really easy to figure out who's taken proprietary confidential information. I will just kind of, again, piggyback off what Michelle mentioned earlier. How do you prevent losing customers? Service your clients. That's all you got to do. Do the thing they pay you to do, and then you won't have that problem.
So this article, you guys, was from usnews.com, by the way. But it's the FTC proposed rule that would ban employee non-compete clauses is the one that we decided to break down today. And as you can tell, we just blew through 27 minutes fairly quickly on this topic. But again, it's like, I think as an organization, if you do have a non-compete right now, and knowing where this is, like, again, what steps could somebody take? Because again, some people, man, they are what they are, and maybe they're going to hear this or look at this and be like, all right, cool. We're going to adhere to the rules. We always adhere to the rules. How do they go about disbanding a non-compete if they're like, right now, they're like, hey, we're just going to release it? Because like from a legal perspective, there's got to be some fucking lawyer fee associated with this because you guys bill for everything.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So here's the reality of it. I'm going to manage expectations. So it's really likely that this rule will be finalized and it will be made into the law of the land. However, it will be challenged, and the challenge could actually pause its implementation, meaning that the non-compete ban isn't in effect, and it could be paused indefinitely, maybe a year or more. So even if this thing does pass and everyone's happy, it could still be stopped. What I would advise any organization, and again, not legal advice, but this is something you should take to your existing lawyers. Yeah. Do you want to ride this wave? Do you want to be at the whims of public opinion and changing legal landscape with your non-competition agreements? Are they that important to your business? Because if they're not that important to your business, get them out of the business, because someday they will all be banned. Whether it's this year or next year or a time in the future, they will go away, and you have to be prepared for that to happen.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great ending point. And, Lord knows our government does a really good job of dragging shit out for a very long time. So this might not even be in effect until 2028 at this point. But I also think that if you're going to be a cutting edge broker or company, again, I understand, just to kind of recap, at the C-suite level, equity stakeholder in an organization level about having a non-compete put in there and all the other nons that Matt listed out. You can go back and listen to that. There's like 18 of them because he's a lawyer. But I understand it at that point. I'm talking about the ones who are affected the most by this, the entry level to mid-level employees and team members that you have. I don't feel the need to ever have a non-compete because Dan Penrod brings up a great point. It only protects poor leadership, and I would agree with that. And same thing from a non-solicit standpoint. I feel like, in my companies as a whole, if you're coming in and utilizing company resources to build your book of business, I could see that. I don't feel like every account that we're working with should be included in that. I think that there's a right way and a wrong way to do this, but at the end of the day, I'll never stop somebody from doing what they have to do to better their life, because I'm not going to be a hypocrite at it all. And so that's kind of my point on all of this shit, Matt. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, because again, man, there's some serious hypocrisy that goes on, especially in trucking, about the whole non-competes, but then they have a rock solid non-solicit in place that essentially fucks over anybody who leaves those organizations.
What I just want to leave with is, when the public comment period opens, it'll be open for 60 days. I urge your listeners, if you've had experiences with non-competes and they have been difficult to manage, please, please, please make a comment. Make a comment publicly at the forum. I will, when it actually comes out, I'll make sure to post about this, but your stories will impact the way the regulations develop. And the more you can talk about your experiences, the better off we are, not just as a supply chain, but as a society. This is your democracy. Participate when you can.
Yeah. Andre Stewart says, very timely topic. And, at the end of the day, I'd love to go and testify in front of Congress, but they don't allow orange polo shirts and backwards hats at Capitol Hill, apparently. But dude, I need to get a custom made orange suit and just fucking roll in with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
That'll prove a point. Well, hey, you guys, that's it for today. The Freight Coach Morning Show. I'll put the link up to this article on the YouTube channel, as well as the audio only replay over on iTunes and Spotify. And if you guys do jump over to those platforms, if you could do your boy a solid and subscribe, share, rank the show on those other platforms, because it just helps get this message out there. Because at the end of the day, you guys, we've grown this into the top podcast because of each and every one of you who take the time to listen and share this out there with your network. Because at the end of it all, you guys, if you guys see value in this, your network's going to see value in this as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon. And yes, Todd, or F-bombs. See you guys on Monday.